Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Remko Rinkema, and today I am excited and honored to be joined by Stefanie Ungar. Stefanie, welcome to the show. This is a special occasion for me and for everyone else in poker to hear your story and to learn more about you and about your dad. But first and foremost, I have to ask, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well. I'm actually really excited to be here with you. Thank you so much for inviting me on.
Yeah, no, seriously. I mean, it was basically a shot in the dark for me being like, you know what? We have this footage, 1981, 1997, Stu winning the main event. We need to do a show about this. And I was like, who else should I ask than you? And you responded right away. You were excited to do it, and that made me really happy. So here we are. And you told me just now you have never even seen all this footage.
No, I haven't. I have never seen, I've only seen him at the final table, like against Perry Green and Doyle. So the fact that you have this, like, I'm really excited to see this myself because I love all things my dad, obviously. So this is really, really cool.
Yeah, no, this is very excited for anyone who basically loves poker, but for you to see your dad basically winning two of the world's biggest events back in the day is amazing. I'll tell you right now, we don't have enough time to listen to all of that's being said, but I'll send you a copy of both these final tables so you can watch them, on your own on TV, so you can just sort of, relax and sit back instead of having to focus on my questions and also on this footage.
Sure.
But yeah, this is basically like a time machine. We're going back right now for all the viewers that are just tuning in. This is the 1981 World Series of Poker main event. The footage we're watching tonight is all available on PokerGO. So if you are tired of our talking, which I can't imagine is going to happen, but if you are and just want to watch the action, then you can go on over to PokerGO.com right now and check out the action. We also have some cool merch available. Go check that out in our PokerGO merch shop. But aside from that, we're just gonna enjoy the show and sort of relive some of these iconic moments. Stefanie, the first go ahead.
No, I was going to say, because it's a special occasion with the World Series, I wanted to show you I'm wearing the World Series of Poker, my dad's championship jacket. So I thought it was, of all times, the most appropriate time to wear it. I was going to show you the back.
Oh, no way. That is so cool.
So yeah, I just thought it's perfect occasion. So like, let's just jump into it.
Oh my God, that is really cool. That is such a cool connection to the past. Do you know what year that jacket was from?
I don't know. I just know that this was found at my mom's house, and I actually didn't even know that we had this. And so I moved away for some time and moved back, and I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, I need this jacket, And so anyways, when I knew I was coming on today, I was like, you know what? I think people would like appreciate that, because there's not a ton that I think we have, left of my dad. So I was like, I just thought that this would be a perfect occasion to share it with the world. I don't know if anyone's even seen it before. So anyways, yes. So he's kind of with us today, which is really cool. And I love that,
That is awesome. As we see him on screen for the first time here on the show, in '81, the kid was still really the kid. He did look very, very young for his age. He was a small guy, and when you read the book about him written by Nolan Doyle and Peter Olson, there's a story in there in the beginning how he used to sit on telephone books because he was so small that he could barely even get above the table. And I think that maybe that's in part where he got his fierce competitiveness from, that people perhaps underestimated him or thought he wasn't worthy because he had this these boyish looks compared to all these. I mean, look at these characters at the table. I mean, this is straight out of Hollywood, and it's just a very different look than the look that he had. The first topic that I want to discuss with you, and they are actually explaining the rules right now on this broadcast, which is really funny when you think about it. The first thing I want to ask you about, when I follow you on Instagram over the last few months, there have been a lot of references to a documentary that you're working on, and I've seen you in pictures with all the greats, Doyle and Jack Binion, and the whole cast of characters from your dad's era. Talk to me a little bit about what it is that you're working on.
Yeah, so basically what I'm working on is a docu-series, actually, is what we're hoping to do. So if you've ever seen the Michael Jordan one, The Last Dance, and it breaks it down. So it's something similar to that, because I just feel like there has been so many things that have been, said about my dad, or movies made about my dad that aren't really even accurate. And when I noticed that, I was just like, here's a guy that everyone says, oh, he's this legend, but I was like, nobody is going to really know the true man that's this legend if I don't do this, because I just felt like I had to, because the man that I knew is not the man that I necessarily hear people talking about or portraying in movies or whatever it is. So I was like, I want to do something about this, and so that's what we're doing right now. So basically, I'm just getting together the people that really knew my dad, that really knew him at the table but away from the table, because I want to show who he was away from the table, the man that was the genius, the man that, why was he a champion? Like, what was it about his personality and the way he lived his life and his mindset and just the ins and outs of him? Because actually they're pretty amazing. He was pretty amazing and very inspiring, even to these guys that you've mentioned, the stories that they've told. Been some really cool things that they've shared. So that's what my hope is. So right now we're just working on that. It's in the very, very early stages. So obviously we have to shop it and everything like that and see who ends up picking it up, and we'll go from there, but it's going to be really cool.
I mean, I'll speak for everyone watching right now that we can't wait to see what this turns into, because as it is with many stories, you have to capture them before they're lost forever. And especially with some of the guys your dad played with, they are definitely up there in age. He was the young guy on the scene for most of his poker career, playing with guys like Doyle and being around the Binion family and people like Bobby Baldwin, for instance. And those were still a fair bit older than him. When you mention misconceptions or stories that are not true about your dad, and there has been a movie made, there's also a book been written about him, there's also been a documentary made, what are some of the things come to mind that you would like to clarify?
Well, first of all, I mean, the movie that was made, I mean, that they came to us to be involved, and we were like, okay, because of course it's like flattering, like, you want to make a movie on like my dad, sure, like send me the script. And this was like this was right when the poker boom happened, and so we're like, okay. So I read the script and I got like 2 or 3 pages in and I was like, this is not my dad. I was like, so we told them, we're like, we are willing to work with you to make it accurate, but they didn't want to, and they wanted to keep it exactly how it was. And so we just said, okay, carry on, have a nice day. And that was it, it went on to, I think it aired on Stars or whatever. And then that was it. And so I wouldn't even watch, I still to this day, I've never even seen it, because I read the script enough to know, like, or just even the first few pages to know like where it was going. Personally, as his daughter, I didn't feel like that was very much a good representation of who he accurately was. So that's my biggest one right now. But as far as the documentary that was made by ESPN, I totally love that one. I stand behind that one. I was on that one. My mom was on that one, as well. And so I feel like that was a great one. That was a great one. And the book too, the book was pretty good as well. So we were involved with helping close that out, because my dad was in the middle of working to, tell his story when he passed away. So they didn't have all the details. So we had to come in there and fill all, the holes that weren't, told yet, and the stories that weren't told yet. And so we were involved with that as well. So yes, I'd more say like the movies and different articles that I've read and different things that I've heard, like rumors that I've heard. And so that's where I'm just like, okay, let's tell the real story. Like, you gotta like 90%, you may have like here and there, like certain aspects that were true, but so I obviously know my dad's story is not a Disney story. So I'm not going to come in there and like, try to be like, oh, he's my dad and I'm naive. Like, I get it. I get that there's parts of his story, and hopefully we can even help some people like someday if they're going down a similar path as him. And that's my hope. And I think that would be my dad's hope as well. So, yeah.
One thing that I'm very curious about is when your dad passed away, you were still very young. Now you also have your own family, and you're married, and in a while you will be older than your dad was when he passed away. You're now sort of an adult in the same way that he was in the early 90s, basically. Do you ever think back of like how different his life must have been compared to yours at similar stages of your life?
Oh yeah, I do. And it's actually, I'm like, man, I feel so far behind. I'm like, at this point, you were like multi-million dollars were running through your hands, and you were around this person, and you were traveling here, and I mean, it was insane. Like, honestly, I think I appreciate like his life and what he accomplished more now. Just going like, it's just unreal. Like, it is unreal to have never had a job your entire life, like ever, and to just make money with this brilliant brain that he had and this talent, and everything he touched, just like, I mean, it just was crazy. So yeah, I definitely look at his life and I look at my life and I'm like, wow. Like, so yes.
Do you like in speaking to all the people that your dad knew and hearing stories from your mom, do you ever feel like there was a point in your dad's life where he could have turned it around for the better, leading to perhaps a different outcome and perhaps, you know, maybe a longer life? Or do you feel as though through all his habits and with all his genius, this was sort of the course that he was on because of all those things?
So I hear what you're saying. This is how I view it. And I don't know if like people even know this. I was talking with Phil Hellmuth like 2 weeks ago, and he didn't even know this. So my dad didn't, you know how most people growing up as teenagers, they get into the, like, they drink, they experiment, they go through that phase. My dad never drank or smoked a day in his life at all. He was all about like playing poker and being in the action and gambling all night, and then going and rushing to go to school the next morning to like finish. And that was his life. That was like his quote unquote, I guess, more of his experimenting of his drugs or whatever it would be. But it wasn't until my dad actually had to put my grandmother in a nursing home. And he was so guilty because my dad was like loyal to a fault. Like anyone that knows him, you'll hear it in the documentary. He would do anything for anyone. So to know that he had to put his mom in a nursing home, it killed him. And so that night is the night that he actually tried cocaine for the first time. He went to a friend's house and they said, try this, it will take your pain away. And so he did. And he didn't even know what it was, right? And so what he ended up doing every time, from what I've understood from him, is every time he would have these moments in life where he was feeling pain, he now realized, oh, that cocaine helped me. I'm gonna, I just lost a $300,000 pot. I just lost this. Oh my gosh, that will help me. And it started to be this thing. And then it no longer was just this occasional thing anymore. It became a problem. But he was not, I never saw him drink in my life or anything. So this was more kind of like, I view it as it started from a place of pain. And just like anything else in life, when you're hurting, you don't want to feel that. Like you're going to do something to try to numb it. And unfortunately for him, I think because he did everything full force and he did everything to the max, I think that's just how it ended up being with cocaine and with drugs, was just his natural personality. And unfortunately, yeah, I think that I wish it never happened, because I wish it never happened, but I think we could have seen him go so much further and live so much longer. But he unfortunately got into this, for those reasons. So yeah.
Extremely sad, of course. And I've read the book multiple times, and it is reflected in the book as well that, up until that moment where he tried cocaine for the first time, he was basically on nothing. And as a clean and sober guy, he destroyed everyone he came across at both the poker table and the gin table, and whatever game you could come up with, he was willing to play. For the people that are just tuning in, we are live on Twitch, on Facebook, and on YouTube. I'm joined today by Stefanie Ungar. Give her a follow on Instagram. Her handle is on the screen. You can see it right there. Today we are watching the 1981 WSOP main event final table. We see Perry Green over there with the white hat on. And then also after this, we're watching the 1997 main event final table. Of course, both main events won by Stu Ungar. There he is. He is all in right now. Let's listen in, actually. Let's see if we get some fun commentary.
To offset that pair of fives. Nope, a pair of fives wins. And Stu Ungar says, all right, I'm still alive. He was hanging on by his fingernails in this tournament, and now that improves himself some, and he is still in the tournament and a chance to defend his title.
Isn't that amazing to see?
Oh my gosh, yes. It's so funny because I know him so well. So like when I watch his mannerisms, it's almost like I know what he's thinking. It's hilarious. I love it. And he looks so much like my son, which is so crazy to me. So, yeah.
Wow. That is really crazy.
Yeah.
Bobby Baldwin, by the way, meanwhile, talking here to the play-by-play host here on screen. Bobby Baldwin, by the way, for those who are watching, he was actually the one explaining the rules of poker on this broadcast. It's funny to think about because, of course, he's a main event winner. Went on to become the CEO of MGM. He's now not in the public as much anymore, but he's definitely still around here in Vegas. We have so much to dive into. I don't even want to jump from topic to topic. But it is kind of something that's always sort of fascinated me. During his life and your time with him, were you aware of his fame and his genius and what he actually sort of did for a living?
Oh yeah, I knew what he did. I mean, I used to just call him a gambler, but though back then, so like I'd go to like my friends' houses and their parents would be like, so what does your parents do for a living? And they would be like accountants or whatever. It would be teachers. And I'd be like, my dad's a gambler, like I definitely knew what he did, and I knew it was different. But I did know he was the best. Like I did, because I'd walk into the casinos and I would watch the way, people would come up to him and shake his hand, or just, like I could tell. And then I, would watch him win tournaments and bring trophies home, and we would talk about it. And so I knew he had this amazing talent. I always knew when I was little that he skipped 2 grades growing up in school. Like I knew he had like a genius IQ, and actually his sister was even smarter than him, my aunt. Like she got a perfect score on, I don't know what test it is, but anyways, when they tested her, so she was even smarter. So it definitely was in their genes, their blood, so yes, I did.
I mean, that's pretty interesting because you were still so young. But then in the years after, Rounders came out and Moneymaker won the main event. Were you in Vegas for all of that? And did you sort of stay in touch with people in the poker industry after your dad had passed?
My dad and I went together to go see Rounders together.
Way.
And it was right before he passed away. Yeah, I remember that. And I remember just watching it, and he was just really quiet, like watching it. And he was just like, he was very, very analytical, and he had such deep thinking. And I just remember like, oh, he's thinking something right now. And then, but yeah, I mean, he even liked it though. I remember him saying, he's like, yeah, it was good. So, but yeah, I mean, what was the other question you asked me though about like the Rounders? And
I was wondering if you stayed in touch or kept following the poker world as it evolved so quickly, because when your dad won the main event in '97, and then you flash forward only 6 years to 2003 when Moneymaker wins the main event, that is like poker on a different planet. And I was just curious if you sort of kept following along with the game.
So, yeah. Okay. So the funny thing with me is like, after, I think when I saw the poker boom happen, it was kind of hard for me because I felt like my dad should have been there, and I was still kind of grieving over just the fact that, like, in a way, I feel like he, with what he did with his life and his lifestyle, like robbed himself of this time that him above anybody should have been involved during that big poker boom. And so when to be honest, when I would see it, I kind of like would turn it off or like turn the other way if I was like in a restaurant, it was playing, or a sports bar or whatever. And it took me quite a few years because I was still working through the grieving, because it was just really hard when I lost him. So, so I knew that there was a huge poker boom going on, but I was not like actively watching it. I didn't know who anybody was because I purposely was not trying to be watching it, I guess, you know. So, but now it's a different story. I mean, years later, I've healed through it. I'm not, you know, I was 16 when he died. So, so now I definitely pay attention. I know who some of the players are. I talk to some of the players now, and the newer guys and all that kind of stuff. And I have a great appreciation for sure.
And I can totally understand that as well, because that has always been the question that goes through my mind. And I discovered the game of poker in 2005. So this is after the poker boom happened. I did not know anything about it. I'm from the Netherlands. I'd never been to Vegas until I turned 21 in 2009. So for me, this was all brand new. But you know, when I walked into the Rio for the very first time to watch WSOP, having read the book, that was one of my first thoughts. Like, Stu Ungar should have been here. Like, Stu Ungar was the guy who would have thrived off this. So much action, you know, so many big events. And he was, of course, you know, a total killer in the tournaments. I mean, we're seeing it right now. He doubled up through Perry Green, and he's probably won every pot since, because now he's sitting behind a giant stack. Like, that aggression and that skill that he had might have been really good for him by having something to play every day with regards to these tournaments.
That's what even Mike Sexton said. He was like, he used to tell me, he's like, man, he's like, I always said, like, if Stewie just would have made it a few more years, he goes, because back then, you know, you play the World Series of Poker, and if you get knocked out, like, you have to wait another year for like another big tournament to happen. So you can get down, you can like be like, man, you know, this is my shot, whatever, and I have to wait another year. But like, what it turned into with like even the World Poker Tour and all these things that were you know, all these things that now, since poker blew up, there was all these extra tournaments and games and things going on, and it could have been so amazing. And that's what Mike said. He's like, I would have just loved to been able to see Stewie during this time. He's like, if oh my God, I don't know what he's doing.
I want to see this. I'm going to pause it and go back. There's a bit of a scene happening here. Hold on. I see King 5 of Spades. Let's listen in on this.
This is so him.
Also can make a flush, right?
As you can see, Stewie's got the King 5 of Spades, so he's got 2 5s with 4 spades. So Bill Smith's got the best hand with 2 6s.
He made a mistake here. He made a mistake.
Bill Smith's hand called his hand a straight, but actually he's only got 2 6s. I believe he's overlooked his whole card. The 5th card, the 10 of Spades, that made Stewie a flush.
And Bill Smith is out, and now we're down to 4. Only 4 left, going for the big money in the World Series of Poker.
So that was Stu getting it in with King 5 of Spades against the 2 6s of Bill Smith. Spade on the river makes a flush for Stewie, and he knocks out another player at the final table. And you know, that's how the.
What was he saying? Wasn't he saying he made a mistake? Was that what he said? I swear I heard him say that.
I think Bill Smith called his hand saying that he had a straight, but he didn't. He only had a pair of 6s. So Bill Smith either was, you know, joking or bluffing, or, you know, he just misread his hand. So Stewie called him out on that immediately. But the funny thing was, Stewie was actually behind. He needed help on the river. He caught the spade, and that's how he managed to send Bill Smith to the rail. But it was his aggression that people remember him for. Basically, you know, winning all the small pots, especially in this era where most players were waiting for the best cards, and he was just, you know, playing on a different level, which is really cool to see. And that would have made him fit in so well as well during the poker boom era. You mentioned Mike Sexton's name. Were there other friends of your dad that you stayed in touch with, or that checked up on you every now and then in your, you know, late teens and early 20s?
I mean, yeah, there's a few. I mean, Mike Sexton's probably the most. I mean, there was like, I don't know if you ever heard of Larry Grossman. Like, there's certain people that like we have always had somewhat of a relationship with, but a lot actually just after my dad passed away, I didn't really like stay in a lot of contact. It was just more here and there. And then if I'd show up to like the World Series of Poker and you run into everyone, it's like a big family reunion and things like that. But mainly I'd say Mike Sexton was who I would stay in contact with, especially over the past like year and a half, obviously before he he passed away. So we were in a lot of contact and going to dinner and things like that quite a bit. So we were planning to do a venture together around my dad. And so it was
well, the passing of Mike Sexton last year. I could also do, hours of tribute to Mike, legendary character. I think they're introducing the players, by the way, here for the Final Four.
Oh, okay.
Let's listen in.
Let's see it.
A couple of hours that most people make in a lifetime.
Yeah, well, I kind of like my chances. I know Stu and I are glad that this is not a wrestling match. But anyway, I do like my chances, and just kind of everybody's going to be trying to steal these chips, and just kind of whoever can get lucky at this point, I think.
I tell you guys, don't lack confidence. From Anchorage, Alaska, the man who plays poker with the Indians and the Eskimos up there, he was in the lead for a while, and then he sort of dropped back. He's in second place now, 216,000. Perry, Green, what are your chances?
My chances are 1 in 4, and I've been lucky the whole tournament. I've played fairly well to get here, and I want to win it and go up back to Alaska and play a game I really know called Deuce Guberak, which in Eskimo is Deuces Wild.
Okay. And the leader right now, the youngest player in the tournament, the defending champion, defending world champ, Stu Ungar, who now lives in Las Vegas out of New York City. You're in the lead. Can you hold it?
I feel I got a good chance to win it. These are all tough players, but I feel I'm favored right now to win it.
All right, there they are, the Final Four, and here we go for the world title. Good luck, gentlemen. Good luck.
A lot of confidence. That's the way you're used to seeing him, right?
Oh yeah, he's so confident, and he actually was always so truthful. So like the way that he answered, like I'm not surprised he said that, because it's just how he was, for sure. But I could see him standing there, and he's antsy, like around, and he was like, I don't want to do all this interviews, like I just want to go play. Like I can see that. He's like, let's get this over with.
Yeah, even when the other guys are talking, he's basically like just like rubbing his hands.
Yeah, he's like
waiting to get some action in. All right, well, we got a big hand here, probably. Let's see.
Fifth card in the center of the table. The 5 cards in the center are the community cards, and they're used by each player to make the best 5-card high hand.
Now, a lot of fans have never heard of 7-card Holdem. It's popular mostly in the southwestern part of America, isn't it?
That's true, Kurt. Texas is a big Holdem state. A lot of no limit in Texas. Most of the poker around the country is of a limit nature. The reason why they use no limit to determine the world champion is the fact that no limit poker itself and no limit Holdem uses all the different aspects of the game of poker itself, the bluffing aspects and things that don't really come into play in limit type structured poker games.
Is there a lot of bluffing here in the World Series of Poker?
Oh, certainly. There's a lot of bluffing going on. People bet a lot of money on very small hands. Sometimes large pots are won with next to nothing, maybe 2 4s or 2 5s.
Here's an example of a large pot. This is Perry Green of Anchorage, Alaska, one of the Final Four. He's coming up with a lot of chips, and when he shoves them in, what would you estimate right here on one hand would be in this pot?
Well, already in the center of the table, in the center of the pot, there's approximately 200,000, maybe more. And Mr. Green has raised, let's look at it in a minute, 182,000 roughly, somewhere in that neighborhood. That'll give you the idea of the power of the money involved in this tournament and how much bluffing may be going on. We don't even know whether his bet will be called or not.
What are the value of the chips?
Well, the red chips are $1,000 chips, and the gray ones are $500 chips. A total of $750,000 worth of chips are remaining among the 4 finalists.
And the high hand wins. In other words, a straight flush is the best hand, running it on down, huh?
A royal flush all the way down to a single pair. So it's the same rules apply as any form of high poker.
Here's the defending champ, Stu Ungar. He may be the man to watch. He's made a comeback. He's 27 years old. He's from New York. And right now, though, there is a leader. That's Perry Green, the furrier who plays poker with the Eskimos up in Alaska. And I'm intrigued by the decisions that are made by these players. They make money decisions. He's folding now. He's made a decision to fold. They have to make big money decisions every few minutes.
Well, he surrendered that $200,000.
Beautiful to see him sort of analyzing his opponent and going through all the motions there as Perry Green moves all in. This, for people who are just tuning in, is the 1981 WSB Main Events. Stu won in 1980 for the very first time, came out of nowhere to beat Doyle Brunson, and now, of course, back at the final table. After this one, we're going into the 1997 main event final table, which, of course, is that famous final table on Fremont Street. Gabe Kaplan doing the commentary. The guy sitting out in the blistering heat with the wind blowing the cards off the table, which, of course, was an iconic scene. If people in the chat have any questions on Twitch, on Facebook, or on YouTube, please send them into the chat. I'll try to ask them to Stefanie. If you have any questions about her or about Stu's life, I will be more than happy to work those in there. I'm curious about which stories of your dad sort of stick with you the most. You know, which memories of him do you hold most dearly? Because, of course, we know him as this poker genius. We know him as this guy who won the main event 3 times. But what stands out to you the most?
I mean, I know he's known as like this aggressive like guy at the table, but he was not like that like in real life, like with me. Like he was super tender, so affectionate, like would sing to me. I'd be like, oh my God, stop. Like he was just so, those are the moments I remember, is like he would, you know, he was so, he loved to take me shopping. And then I remember one time I was thinking about this as I was getting ready for the show. I was like, I remember one time I had to go get my eyebrows done, and I was like, do you want to go with me? And he was like, yeah, let's go. Like he was all about like doing everything with me. And like, we just always spent so much quality time together. And so it's like, you know how they say the small things are the big things in life? That's how it is with me. Like, it's just the small things. Like we'd lay on the couch watching black and white movies. He called them pictures. I'd like, Dad, they're movies. He's like, oh no, I like this picture. I'm like, no, it's, and it's like you said, he was so young, but everyone he was around was so old. He was always hanging out with like old men, you know? So he talked like that too. So it's funny. But yeah, it's just those little things for sure that I miss about him, just the everyday, just the little moments. So. Yeah.
Did he make an active effort to keep you away from it all? Like, was he trying to like not let you see how crazy his life was?
So when so my mom and dad got divorced and we moved to Florida, after my brother passed away. And so my mom's whole family was in Florida. So I would come out here and spend like the whole summer with him, every Christmas break with him, every Easter break. And when I was around, yeah, he very much didn't have me around like anything. Like obviously I knew that there was, you know, like drugs, like that he, you know, had an issue. And I knew like he was very much into women, but like when I would come around, like I would see none of it. So he very much shielded me from a lot of that stuff. I don't know how he did it, but he was kind of, he was very old fashioned. I don't know if a lot of people know that about him. He was very much like, what's right is right, what's wrong is wrong, and I don't want you around this kind of stuff, and very protective over me, to the point where he wouldn't even really let me play outside. Like we had a cul-de-sac and he would barely even let me play outside because he was just very protective. He thought, you know, like he didn't want me to get kidnapped. He remembered what happened with, I think it was Frank Sinatra's son, like where they got kidnapped for ransom. And so he was always having these things of like, I don't want people know who I am, and I don't want there to be a situation where you're taken and for ransom, you know, or something. And so he was very protective. So he shielded me, yes, from a lot of things that I think were really going on in his life, but I didn't necessarily see it when I would come around. So.
And you already told me, and I also know this story from following you a little bit, that he also never taught you how to play poker.
No, he taught me how to play goldfish very well. And we played war, and we would play checkers and do all that kind of stuff. He would play, I mean, he'd always be playing a game. He loved that. But no, he wouldn't teach me how to play poker. Obviously nowadays I know for women, the poker table isn't what it used to be, like, you know, and I think that's why before years ago, he didn't want me around it, was because, you know, he said the way the guys spoke at the table and the this and that. And so nowadays I'm sure his view would be, you know, probably slightly different, but from his reference point of where we were years ago, he just didn't want me around that. So, yeah.
So him leading that lifestyle and him being a full-time gambler and poker player, did it also immediately steer you away from ever wanting to, know more about it or be in that field? Or was it just that maybe you're just not that much into games? Like, how do you see that?
Okay, so for me, the way I took it, so when we had this conversation that I'm talking about, like when I said, Dad, I said, do you ever want to teach me how to play poker, which I've shared on my Instagram page. And he said, no. He basically, that was one of our last conversations that we had right before he passed away. So when he passed away, I took that as like, that's my way of honoring him and respecting him, now that he's no longer with us. And so I just really held on to that, and I never learned. Like, I did it. I probably could have, obviously, and that's the number one question people ask me is, do I play? And I mean, do I almost feel stupid saying no? Like, kind of, like, to be honest, but I did it out of honor and respect for him, because that was what he wanted. And that's the least I could do now that he's not around, so that's the lens that I saw it through.
So for your kids, do you think that they'll be competitive and into games? Because I know from me personally, I love to play poker, but I also love to play every other game under the sun. Do you sense that it runs in the family with you as well?
Oh, I didn't say I'm not competitive. I just said I didn't play poker. I'm definitely competitive. That's for sure. Everything I do try to be number one. I do. And, I not to toot my own horn, but I'm, whatever I shoot for, I'm okay. Like, I do good. But yeah, I mean, I do see it also in my children. Like, I see it in my daughter. She's so competitive, and she has a very similar mind to my dad as well. She has an amazing memory, and she is extremely witty. And my dad was so witty, so funny, so quick with the comebacks. She's very much like that. So yeah, I definitely think it runs in our family. That's for sure.
I mean, that's just really funny. And as we see in pro sports, a lot of the times, the children or grandchildren of famous athletes, they ultimately come back around into the sport. Maybe in this case, maybe applied elsewhere, but I do think that it's so funny to hear the competitive nature. All right, we got a big pot brewing here. Let's listen in.
Just think of that. Over $500,000 in one pot in this World Series of Poker, and the business decisions being made here in just 2 or 3, 4 minutes of time.
Well, I'm sure this hand, even though it looks like it's going to be a tie hand, is the largest pot in the 12 years history of the World Series of Poker. Yeah. And if you're going to split a pot, you might as well split a big one.
We'll be back here in Binion's Horseshoe.
Oh, I guess they did not show us all the cards, but I guess it was a split pot according to Bobby. So we have to trust Bobby's word on that. We're still four-handed in the 81 World Series of Poker. We got a beautiful cast of characters. We've got 3 hats, and then Stewie with his his Beatles type hairdo.
I know.
Which was the hairdo he basically had his entire life, right?
Yeah, he used to say, like, people used to say he looked like Mick Jagger and different, I mean, they used to call him Monkey. Like, he would make fun of himself. So, like, everything I'm saying he would have said, but like, yeah, he always had kind of hair that was a little shaggy. He used to like to go to the hair salon and have them wash his hair and do all that kind of stuff, and that was totally his thing. So yeah. And
to what you said earlier, there's a reference in the book to how he was basically an old man in how he dressed and how he acted. Yeah. Did you make fun of your dad for that also?
So when I came around, like, this was back when, I think more so like when my mom met him, like, he would wear the old man, like, polyester pants with the white shoes, and he would dress like all the guys that he was hanging out with, but they were like 60-year-old men, and my dad was like 21. And so, but by the time, like, I remember his fashion, he actually was very much into dressing nice, dressing like, and he would more so wear like jeans and like a nice like silk shirt and things like that. That's more so I remember him. But I never saw him in like the polyester kind of like old man look like I've been definitely told about. Yeah.
The stories that your dad told Nolan Dahl and Peter Olson and many others for the book and also for the documentary that they use some of those stories. A lot of them from the early days, from before he came to Vegas, while we see Ken Smith departure, Mr. Top Hat himself, also a legend of the game, are stories about, you know, his upbringing and you know, what it was like for him in New York City and his dad and the store that he used to run. Did he tell you stories about his past and about his childhood?
Oh yeah, his dad was one of the biggest bookies in New York City, and he would go there and do his homework after school. And his dad ran that bar, and so that's where he would go, and it was like a hangout, you know. But my dad was very scared of his dad, and his dad made it very known, like, Stewie, I never want you to get into gambling. Which oddly, we just said the same thing he said to me, so it's funny. And he was like, Stu, I never want you to get into this. So he would catch my dad like showing an interest, and he would try to shut that down. He would try to shut that down real quick. But yeah, after my grandfather died, my dad was only like 12 or 13. And he had a sister and a mom to support. And he naturally already had an interest in gambling. And that's when it kind of started, was after his dad passed away. He fully got into it to support his mom and his sister.
Big hand here.
Look at him going in.
Yeah. Pocket kings for Stu.
So this is a do or die situation for the young champion.
He looks so
Deep
confident.
study by the furrier from Anchorage, Alaska, Perry Green, as he looks at that amount of chips being shoved in front of him.
Well, this is a common situation that's come up earlier in the tournament. He's got 80,000 in the pot now. Stewie's raised him an additional 120,000. Perry's got an ace-queen. That's good enough to go with, and I think he's going to go with it.
Perry Green again, an ace-queen in the hole. Stu Ungar has a pair of kings in the hole as we wait for the flop.
Now, if Stewie loses this pot, he'll be eliminated from the tournament and finish in third place. But third place isn't bad. It pays 75,000.
So he's all in. He shoved his chips in.
It's showdown from here on out. Let's see what the flop has. Wow, an ace, 5, and a 10. So Perry made 2 aces on the turn. The king of diamonds makes Stewie 3 kings. Now Perry needs to make a straight or a flush or he'll lose this pot.
He says, give me that card. He doesn't get it. Stu Ungar wins it with 3 kings. And that should be a turning point for him and put him in the lead.
Well, this lead's changed hands several times between the same 2 players, Stu Ungar and the furrier from Alaska.
So huge pot there for Stu. Ace on the flop for Perry Green, and then the king on the turn to save him, to keep him in the race. Perry Green still has got a lot of chips left, but I think Stu is now back in the chip lead. I mean, poker is such a volatile game. One card falls differently, and all of a sudden he's out in third place. And in this case, he finds the double up, and play continues with the gentleman in the middle there sitting on very few chips, while Stu and Perry are basically playing. They're basically playing one-on-one with a spectator at this point. That's at least what it looks like.
Yeah. I love this. I love this so much. This is amazing.
I'm so glad that we got this footage and that we get to watch it now. Did he ever talk about his big wins? Was he proud of his results?
You know, he didn't really talk about it. He wasn't. I mean, you would think he would like brag. Like he didn't. Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, he would say things like, what was his favorite thing? He would say, oh, he'd go, honey, he's like, I'm sure. He's like, I mean, what is he doing? Oh, is he getting mad? What did he just say? That was hilarious. I don't know. He would say things like, there might be a better poker player than me one day. He's like, I doubt it. He's like, but it's possible. And he'd go, but there will never be a better gin player than me. He's like, oh, that's for sure. And so like he would say like things like that, but he wouldn't come home and talk poker with me and tell me about big wins, because obviously I didn't know what the heck he'd be talking about. I do remember though, one big win that he got, he dedicated, he got it etched on it was a Super Bowl of poker. He won that 3 times, the Amaryllis won Super Bowl of poker. And so one of those years he got it etched on the, the trophy, to Stefanie Love Daddy. And it was so important for him to do that. And so we got it like late because he wanted to send that off to go get it etched. And so he would, you know, like those kind of things I know about, but like he wouldn't tell me about hands and things like that, you know, that he won or whatever. So.
But it is still really cool that he at least had those, you know, trophies and things like that. And even though it becomes very clear that he didn't care much about that stuff, he just wanted to win. He wanted to crush his opponents, and that's sort of what he focused on.
Yeah, he did. Definitely.
It's definitely a type of competitive spirit that you don't really get to see that often, especially at the highest level. And for him to basically do it for a couple of decades straight, whenever he put his mind to it, he basically got in the mix and you know, performed at that high level. He managed to win.
He was competitive in everything that he did. I mean, he was amazing ping pong player. He was an amazing basketball player. Like, he would sit there and throw free throws and like not miss, like he would do like 25 in a row. He loved backgammon. So like anything that gave any sort of like where you had to bring that competitive edge, like he wanted to be the best. And he kind of did, like he kind of like he would practice and practice until he'd be like the best, you know? So that was very much, he just was a competitive person in nature. So I'm not shocked to see, you know, like when I watch him play and to see it come out, you know, in poker, it's just who he was in general in life, you know?
Yeah. And you mentioned Gin Rummy, which of course that was his number one game. Did you ever come close to understanding how good he was at that game? Did anyone ever, you know, give you context as to what it was that made him so special and what made him so good at that?
I'll tell you what, I'm learning a ton about it right now. I keep going to interview people because I'm, you know, executive producing this docu-series, and I'm going to people to talk about poker, and they're like, no, let me just tell you about his gin. And I'm like, wait a second, I need to talk about his poker, you know? And they're like, but you have to understand is you want to talk about poker, but you really need to know about his gin. And I'm like, okay. And so like I have just so many stories about gin now that it's like, you know, like even you know, people consider him to be the best poker player, but I guess it's nothing compared to his gin playing abilities. And that's just crazy to me, you know, to know he was that talented. And he would like Billy Baxter would say, he's like, he was such a savant. He would just feel things and he would know things. And Billy was like, it was scary. Like he would see through your soul. And I think with gin, he really was able to have that one-on-one play to really, you know, it'd be on full display for sure.
Yeah. I'm not a gin player, but for people in the chat who do know how to play gin, do let us know what it is that can make someone a good gin player. Maybe we can discuss it here on the show a little further. People are pointing out.
Do you know? Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, do you know that gin was actually, from what I've heard, even bigger than poker when my dad first came to town? Like that's what all the guys were playing, like all the big guys that you mentioned and all the legends, you know, so to speak, they were playing gin. And so that's why he came here, was to play them in gin until nobody would play him in gin anymore. That's really how he learned how to play poker. It was because he needed to for his livelihood. Like nobody would play him anymore. It got to a point where they're like, no more. And he wasn't allowed to enter tournaments anymore either. So he was just like, I got to learn something new. And he learns only a couple months before he entered his first World Series of poker, and he literally he wins it, you know, and then he repeats it again. So it's just crazy. I mean, he's my dad, but even I can recognize like, wow, like that is just so uncommon, that gift, you know. So
it's really funny when you say that, because what you're also basically saying is that Stu ruined the game of gin forever, because he was so good. He was so good that no one wanted to play him. And when you're the top dog and no one else wants to play you, then the game sort of dries up. And perhaps we can credit him even more so with making poker more popular, because gin was basically a solved game for him, and there was no competition left.
You know, it's funny that you say that, because as I've been doing this documentary and hearing people speak, that has been exactly the same thought. And I was like, did Jin just die out because there was no way? I mean, there was no way any longer. Like, and so now he was forced to move to poker, and then that became really popular because there was just a better, you know, I guess it wasn't so much in his favor, you know. So yeah, I mean, that was exactly what you said was my thought.
Yeah, all right, we got a big hand happening here. Before we dive into this hand, let me actually scroll back because I think we're missing a huge one here.
Okay.
This might actually be one of the biggest pots of the tournament, so we're going to watch this. While I'm scrolling back here, I just want to admit to being an idiot. I misspelled your Instagram handle. I did the PH. I'm just so used to Stefanie with PH. It's Stefanie with an F, ladies and gentlemen. We changed the graphic. It's all updated now. So please give her a follow on Instagram, Stefanie Ungar. She's producing a documentary about her dad as we speak. She's sharing a lot of great stories about her dad on her Instagram page. So please don't miss out and follow along with her journey as she's covering the story of her dad. And that story it goes much deeper than just the game of poker. And today, as you guys are all tuned in, we're watching the 81 main event final table and the 1997 main event final table. Now, this hand, I'm curious about. Let's listen in.
Call the 16,000, and he's raised Perry. Let's see how much he's raised Perry. Raised Perry 40,000 more. Looks like Perry.
All right, so we're heads up in the 1981 main event, Perry versus Stu Ungar. We got some a raise and a re-raise going on here before the flop, and about to see a huge one, I think.
All right, now we'll have the flop coming up. And there it is, Jack 9-8, 2 clubs up there. Perry has in the hole the 10 and deuce of clubs, and Stu has in the hole the ace of clubs and jack of clubs, and there are 2 clubs in the flop, so one more club for each of them. They'd have a club flush, right?
Well, Stewie's let off and bet 40,000, and Perry's moving in all this money. This is what happens in no-limit Holdem when you're using community cards in the center of the table. They both think they have a super strong hand. Perry has a super strong draw. He's got 2 ways to make a straight and a 4-card flush draw. Stewie's got the top pair of 2 jacks with an ace-high flush draw.
So right now, Stu has the best hand.
Oh, he certainly does. I don't think Stewie's going to hesitate a moment to call this money. If Stewie does call this will be the largest pot in the history of the World Series of Poker.
And this is the 12th year of the World Series of Poker, and here it comes. And this pot now is going to be $554,000. No wonder they're getting up.
There's Doyle in the background. Do you see him? Doyle is standing up there watching in the polo shirt.
Oh, yeah.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
Can deuce the club?
Yeah. That's
And deuce of clubs. Here's the 4th card of a jack. That's 3 jacks for Stu Ungar. And no club shows on that 5th card, and Ungar wins the largest pot in the history of the World Series of Poker, $554,000.
Wait a minute.
Wow, look at these cards here real quick. We got Stu, let's see, he has, it's kind of hard to see. The graphics are not the best. I think the board might be paired twice.
Yeah, I can't tell.
It's hard to see. I mean, it looks as though Perry has a straight, but then Stu needs to have a full house to beat him. It's really hard to tell here.
All right, Stu Ungar sitting.
But the most important thing, Stu doubled up here. Now he has a big chip. But you can see that Perry only has a little bit of chips left, so we're getting close here to the end.
So he's talking to someone to the left, and I think it's Chip Reese who's over there. I just saw.
Oh, really?
In the last clip. Yeah, and I think that's who he keeps talking to.
That's awesome.
There's the flop.
Yeah, definitely poker broadcasting has changed a little bit over the years. The game was much harder to follow back in the 80s, but it is cool that this footage even exists.
Oh my gosh, I know. I love it.
Move Perry out of the pots if he can.
Keep driving on him, in other words.
Keep pounding. Perry's announced that he's going to raise it. It's one thing about Perry, he never gives up.
So one of the side stories that I know about is that Doyle Brunson would take bets from people playing in the tournament on whether someone from Texas or from or no, it was whether a Jewish person or someone from Texas would win, because the field was usually half Jewish, half Texas. That was basically the bet. So that's a really funny thing to think about.
I have heard that too as well recently. I'm learning a lot.
Yeah, you're starting to become a poker expert now.
Yeah.
That you're doing this documentary.
Maybe I will try, my hand in it someday. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know.
Well, maybe there's a future in poker broadcasting for you, or working in content.
Who knows?
Keeps looking at those.
I love
cards.
it.
They never change.
He feels so good right now.
Yeah, he has that natural swagger about him.
Oh, he did, for sure. So confident.
In this tournament right here.
Look at the shadows.
I actually heard Perry Green's a really nice guy. I've heard only great things about him.
Yeah, and I believe he still plays the World Series of Poker. I've seen him out here a couple times.
Yeah, I heard he's still playing too.
Well, he seems to really be on the borderline in this hand.
So meanwhile, Perry Green is all in right now, so we're waiting for Stu to make a decision.
Old cards again.
Well, he's thinking to himself, maybe he might wait until get a little better hand next time. You just really don't know. He's right on the edge of calling.
Put the clock on it.
Uh-oh, he asked for the clock. Explain that now.
Well, it's just like football. If you delay the game, the opponents can call for a stopwatch, which gives you 70 seconds to act on your hand. Now, if you haven't acted on your hand in the time allotted, the opponent automatically wins the pot.
I don't think Stu liked that when he asked for the clock. And he folds. He is folded. And that really helps Perry Green.
Don't ask me no more.
Oh, what do you mean don't
He
answer?
asked him what he had, and he wouldn't answer, and he said, don't ask me anymore.
And they were both
Well, the
small.
tempers flare a little bit.
Nerve endings are showing.
I had two pairs. Tens and fours.
Huh?
Tens and fours.
We'll be back.
The table talk is the best. Just like the chirping back and forth, it's fantastic to watch.
You know what I heard recently? Is I guess the table talk that happens. My dad wouldn't say a lot, but then when he would say the one thing that would just crush you. And then you were like, oh, I heard it from multiple people. When he would say just that one thing that would just get to you. And I'm like, because he read people so well that he knew how to I don't know, unfortunately jab at them or fortunately, however you want to play or think about it.
I mean, his reputation has both, good and bad. Especially, his attitude towards anyone around him when he was losing, was a pretty harsh and negative one. What have you caught of that side of him?
Yeah, he definitely, I think if you know my dad, everything he did was full force, full passion, full in. I think any champion that you see, you compare the Michael Jordans and everything they did, they were fully in, so you would see that side of him, when he would lose or when something would happen, I'd come out and he would have a temper. But I do know this, and I know this actually from firsthand from dealers and people coming up to me to say hey, I know Stewie has a bad reputation with dealers. He'd throw decks of cards. He would do crazy things, but they'd also say, but just so you know too, he'd come back and apologize and he would tip us really well. It would, after the adrenaline would come down, he would be like, oh man, so that's even stuff that's not out there, and I want those people to tell just the full stories. Yes, he very much, though, I'm not going to deny the fact that I think I heard he even spit on a dealer before. It's bad. I know it's bad, but yeah, he just definitely would be taken over.
Demeanor that it's only about one thing, and that one thing is winning. And even losing a single hand, which happens all the time, you can just see that it sort of eats at him because he needs to win every hand.
Oh yeah, he doesn't want to lose. He doesn't want to lose, period. I don't even know if that saying fold and live to fold again is even my dad's real saying, because I just don't see my dad folding he wants to win, you know what I mean? I don't know, but maybe it is. I just, knowing my dad, I just don't know.
No, I don't think he was much into folding.
But there's that famous saying that everybody always quotes him as, and I just don't know if that was him or not, but
Yeah, I don't know. You should probably ask Doyle or someone that knew him better.
I should.
Yeah.
That's actually a good point. Let's get to the bottom of this.
Get to the bottom of this story. It's definitely it's definitely one of the
and
more.
it could be.
Yeah, it could be true. I think if he said it though, he probably said it in jest to have other people just fold whenever he was trying to run over them, because you just fold, because there's going to be another hand.
That's true. It could have been the other way around, right? Yeah.
It's definitely possible. For the people in the chat, thank you so much all for chiming in. And Stefanie, just so you know, there's a lot of positive comments about your dad coming in on all platforms. People also loving your stories, and a lot of people suggesting that you should get into poker broadcasting. So that would would be really cool to have you be a bigger part of the poker community in the years to come. I mean, for by the way, for those who are tuning in late, can you show the back of the jacket once more?
Yeah, I figured I would wear my dad's jacket, so I'm going to show you guys here. I don't know if you could tell.
Oh yeah, we can tell. There it is. Binion's horseshoe, the winter jacket from back in the 80s, I believe.
Yeah, so I just figured you guys would maybe want to see it. It's kind of cool. It's a part of him being with us today, so hopefully you appreciate it.
One question coming in that I hope you might know the answer to, because I don't.
Yeah.
Someone asking, is there a video of the 1980 win against Doyle? Do you know?
I have seen like the stuff on YouTube that is like the heads up against him and Doyle. I've definitely seen that. It's really, I love that. I think I've posted it on my Instagram. I'll double check, but if not, I'll try to find it and post it. But I don't have like the full footage. No, I don't know if Jack Binion or anyone would still have it or not. But I just have seen only the final table.
Right. More to add to your list to investigate when you get to speak to Jack Binion. Ask if that footage still exists.
Yeah, I'll send him a text.
Because
Jack is super kind too. Like I'm so thankful. I just have to say this. I'm so thankful that he really wanted to be interviewed for this project, because I know he doesn't really do that anymore. And so I was just so thankful that he was really accommodating and so willing to do this. So it was just, oh, look at Puggy. I grew up with him. That's funny.
These guys are, there he is.
Oh my gosh, that looks so much like my son. It's so crazy. I can't believe it.
That is a great shot from the 1980 win. Of course, this is at Binion's Horseshoe. I wonder, I haven't been to Binion's in a while, but I wonder if they still have the Gallery of Champions.
They do. I go down there kind of like when I'm on Fremont Street. I sneak in there and I take my kids and I show them, and especially my daughter, she's older, so she gets it. So I show her that. And then the other side is the Poker Hall of Fame, and I show her that wall too. And so, I mean, last time I was there, I should say. And they have a really cool picture. I don't know if you guys have been to the Legends. I think it's called the Legends Lounge at the new Circa Hotel. They have, if you haven't been there, they have a really cool picture of my dad and Bob Stupak and I think Eric Drake. And my dad was playing against Bob. And that picture is right there when you first walk in, which was really cool. I had no idea until I walked in there myself and saw it. So
yeah, that is really cool. When you share that on your Instagram, I immediately was thinking, I need to go there and go check that out, because that is such a cool way to keep the memory alive of all that happened in that era, but also that area specifically, because the Circa is basically where it all went down, just across the street or next to all these places that your dad used to play. And do you think, if you could speak to your dad right now and tell him, how his fame basically carried on, how his legacy and his legend, grew to become, this incredibly large thing with how poker exploded, do you think he would have loved it? Do you think he would have understood, how the game had evolved and gotten so big, and how, his legacy was a big part of that?
Absolutely. Like, I mean, to hear from people, especially in this documentary that I'm doing, when they would say, I'll just use, for instance, Billy Baxter. He said, if Stewie didn't know a card game, he goes, give him 2 days and he would be better than all of us that have been playing it for 20 years. So, I definitely think that as poker has evolved and turned into what it is, like he would have already been, probably in my opinion, just based on his track record, that much more ahead as well. So as everybody else was evolving, he would have evolved as well and probably been up to here, you know? So I don't know. I don't usually like agree with like, you know, like, oh, that was the old players, how they played, like, and the new players, like, I get it. But I know that if my dad was given the chance to evolve through the years without, you know, passing away, I know he would have evolved just as well, you know, so, and probably been further, you know, so that's how we did things.
And do you think he would have loved the fame and attention that came along with being a poker star?
Oh, absolutely. He would have loved it. He was on the Merv Griffin show with, after he won, I think, this World Series of Poker, he went on the Merv Griffin show with Jack Binion. And I even brought it up to Jack. I said, oh my gosh, Jack, I forgot to ask you during the interview to talk about the Merv Griffin show. And when you went on with my dad, they brought a big bag of money. They poured it all out on Merv Griffin's desk. And it was like a big thing. And so anyways, Jack goes, oh boy, he goes, he loved being on that show. And I was like, oh, I know. So he would have loved the whole like fame and the notoriety. Like he would have had fun with it. I'm sure he would have ate it up for sure. He liked people, and he liked talking to people. Honestly, when we would walk through the casinos and anyone would stop him, he would legit take his time and shake their hand and talk to them and be like, what's your name? And like, these are the aspects that, like, the things about my dad that people don't know. He was like so kind, you know, like, of course he may be losing like a $800,000 pot and not be the happiest, but like in real life, he was so kind and so charismatic, and I don't know. So anyway, but yeah, to answer your question, yes, I think he'd love it.
All right, and here we have the great big moment. We were talking over the final.
Rewind. Sorry.
Hand. We have the final hand here. We got to go watch the final hand and
yes,
pay more attention
definitely.
to what the commentators and what Stu and Perry were saying. We're just gonna go back to the beginning of this hand. Let's go watch.
Yeah, go for it.
Let's see. All right, so
I've watched this one.
I'm sure you have. All right, final hand, 1980 Wsb Main Event, Peregrine versus Stu Ungar. Let's just roll the tape.
All right, let's see how this hand goes. Stu Ungar sitting right on the edge of winning his second world title in a row, and there's a bet by Perry.
Perry brought it in for 16,000. Well, as you can see there, Stewie's whole cards, the ace, queen of hearts, powerful cards in Holdem. Stewie's announced a raise. 25,000, Kirk, 25,000 more to Perry Green. Well, as you can see, Perry's got a 10 and a 9 in the hole. He's to the point where he's got to play this pot. 100,000 in the pot before the turn.
And here comes a flop.
Oh, what a flop. The 4, 8, and a 7 and 2 hearts. That makes Stewie a 4-card flush to draw at. And look at me bet.
And Perry said, I'm going to play.
I don't blame him. He's got an open end straight. He might catch a 10 or a 9.
You got a hard flush.
I can have a hard flush.
Well, I mean, to
You
draw.
have 2 hearts?
Two. Don't even have one.
I can have a hard flush. There's only 2 out there.
1, 2, 3, 40. What do you bet?
100.
50. Okay. 70. 78.
What do you got?
He had $78,000 left in chips,
But I got a draw.
and he said, I've got to draw for it. Stu has the best hand right now. And they sense it. Look at the crowd.
I think that's chip in the yellow
If
in the
Perry
back.
Green loses
really?
his hand, it's all over, and Stu Ungar repeats as a world champion of poker.
Move the checks away.
So for those who can't figure it out based off the commentary, Peregrine has just 10-9 for a straight draw. Stewie has ace queen of hearts for the ace high and the heart flush draw. Peregrine jokes saying, asking him if he has a flush, and Stu, of course, snaps back at him right away. How can I have a flush? There's only 4 hearts out there. Just immediately chirping back at him. So let's see the turn and river here.
Here comes the 4th card up.
9, 10, 6, 9,
4
10,
clubs, no help to Perry.
9, 10, 6,
And the queen does it. Queens and fours, a winning hand for Stu Ungar, and he repeats as the world champion of poker. What a tournament.
There's my mom coming through with my brother.
Oh,
and
no
the
way.
hat.
What a world champion of poker.
You got to see that again.
What a tournament.
Oh, that's so cool to see.
And then there's my brother. Yeah, so my brother was in the ball cap and just idolized him for sure.
What a tournament.
Oh, with the hat there on. Oh, yeah. Just to his left.
That's the winner. And a child shall lead him. 27-year-old Stu Ungar has again won the World Championship of Poker 2 years in a row. What are the odds on that, winning it
It's awful big.
successive years?
Very tough to win it. It's got to be play awful lucky in key situations.
75 of the best poker players in America came in here. What's been your secret these 2 years?
I just waited out. I had a lot of bad streaks in. I tried to just hang on until I got one good streak and then play it out. I won 300,000 in about an hour when I was down to 30,000. That was it.
How about the winner here?
Well, I think he's a great player, and I think if one of the hands had just broken, if I'd have caught a red 7 or even a 10 paired, or even, just something like that on one hand, I had him all in twice. And, of course, he had the legitimate draw, and that's why we call it poker and gambling, and best place to do it is at Binion's Horseshoe, because when you win, they love it.
Take a look at the money on the table.
Promo right there.
Oh my God, he got paid extra for that one.
I know.
$750,000 on the table that the final 9 finishers will divvy up. Stu Ungar will take $375,000. Harry Green, he's tossing for the coin, will take $150,000. So that's the story of the 12th annual World Series of Poker, and what an event it was, and some hands that will be talked about for years to come. From Binion's Horseshoe Casino, Las Vegas, Nevada, Kurt Gowdy wishing you all so long.
Kurt Gowdy, broadcast legend, doing the commentary for the WSOP back in 1980, or 1981, I should say. Really cool to watch this final table. First time for you seeing the whole thing here, Stefanie.
Yeah,
And
I loved it.
there we have Jack Binion with Perry and Stu. For the people in the chat who are just tuning in, please, if you have any questions, please send them in. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. I do this show once a week, every Thursday. Next week on the show, I'm going to have Spraggy, the Twitch poker streamer from London, on the show. That's going to be a lot of fun. And we are pivoting straight into the 1997 WSOP main event final table. Yes, we are going back to back here with 2 final tables. A different era. This is 26 years after the one of his struggles with money are very well known. The backers that always had faith in him largely stepped away for a majority of the 90s there because of his drug problems. But then he still managed to find ways to get into the big tournament. What have you been able to learn about this part of his life?
Yeah, I mean, everything you say is true. I mean, I acknowledge that because it's the truth. He actually even mentions it himself at the end when he wins this, about his struggles from the last few years before this. But yeah, I mean, I know this tournament for sure, Billy Baxter, the story is, and I know people have read about it. For those of you that haven't, he, went up to Billy and was like, Billy, please stake me. Like, please, And Billy's like, leave me alone. Stewie's like, and he was playing himself. So he didn't want to be bothered. And Billy went up a few, kept winning. And so then my dad waited till he had quite a bit more money and was like, Billy, I promise you, I'm good. He's like, just, take a risk one last time. He's like, I promise you, I'm going to win this. He just, obviously he felt something. It was bizarre. So so my dad was actually the very last person to enter this tournament for 1997. He was the last person because he did not have the money. And finally he convinced Billy, and Billy was like, okay, I'm doing well. Fine. Here, Stewie, here, go ahead. And they, you know, ultimately we know, like, he won. So, so yeah, it was, but it was really good for him. I think during this time he got his confidence back, and it was really great to see him, you know, in this state when he won.
Yeah, so this, of course, is the last big win of his life and career. Also, one of the last, you know, big moments that we have, or maybe it is the last moment that we have of him on TV. Talk to me about the aftermath of him winning this, like winning $1 million from a position of being broke. Must have been huge, but we also know that, you know, his vices were strong, and it wasn't only the drugs. Also, sports betting was played a huge part in his life, according to the stories in the book. So, what do you remember about this period after his big win?
Well, my dad would always go broke and then back to a millionaire, and go broke and back to a millionaire. Like, that was his life. Like, even before he got really bad into drugs, my dad was a true gambler, really, at the end of the day. And he did not manage money well, and money was just a tool for him to would have to put money aside to make sure during those times where he would go broke that we would have something, you know. So that was just his life. So to hear that he went broke, like, it's no different than what he just never had a respect for money, like, unfortunately. But also, that's why we're talking about him to this day, is because there was no attachment to money. He played the way that he played. He didn't have that kind of fear, I guess, or whatever you want to call it. But do you want to listen to this? Sorry.
Yeah,
I didn't know if you wanted to hear this.
No, I'll happily. You're in charge tonight. Let's just.
Oh, no. I don't want to be in charge. It's your show. I didn't know if you wanted to hear that. But I can continue on. I can continue. Basically, that's what happened, was that he split the $1 million prize with Billy Baxter. So he had 500 and Billy, and he, as you know, legend has it, like, he lost a lot of money betting sports, like, shortly right after, and which I wish he never bet sports. He was horrible at it. But he did. He bet like $100,000 on a basketball game or whatever it would be, and he was just not good. He was not good at it. And so I know that a lot of his money from that $500,000 actually was gone due to sports betting right afterwards. So yeah, unfortunately, I wish he, you know, managed it better. I wish he had, you know, just been a little more responsible, but that wasn't really my dad's nature, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But that's just the truth.
And to what you said also, it was also one of the reasons why he became so successful. So in a sad sort of roundabout way, it almost, for him at least, it sort of went hand in hand, the success and the failures.
Yeah. Just strength and what was his greatest weakness. And they said his greatest weakness was that things came too easy for him. You know, he had no reason to ever prepare, and to, they described it like, you know, you have a monkey that's next to like a banana tree. Like, why do you need to go plant if every time you need something, you go grab that banana? So when the hurricane comes along, you didn't plan for that, you know, because everything just came so easy to him that it actually was his greatest weakness. And when they shared that with me, I was like, that is so true. Like, to hear that when things come so easy, that it's your greatest weakness. You don't have to plan for like how other people do have to plan, because that's never been your life to have to, in a sense. So I definitely agree with that with my father.
Wow. For people who are just tuning in, yes, we are going to listen to the interview with Stu on the broadcast right now. For those who want to watch this entire final table, along with plenty others from the 80s and the 90s, they're all available on PokerGO. So don't get frustrated if me and Stefanie are talking about the action or talking about her life and about Stu's life. But all these final tables are available on PokerGO forever and ever. So enjoy the show today and then watch those final tables whenever you have time. Now, you made a very good interruption, because this is about to be an interview with Gabe and Stu. So let's listen in on this one.
The other plays very well. Gabe spoke with Stewie last night after he won a seat at the final table.
There's been a lot of big stories of this year's World Series of Poker, record number of entrants, a lot of foreign winners, 12 out of 20 tournaments, a husband and wife team winning 3 tournaments. But I don't think there's any bigger story than the reemergence of Stu the Kid Ungar, a gentleman who won back-to-back world championships in 1980 and 1981. He's not a kid anymore, but Stewie, congratulations.
Thank you, Gabe. I appreciate it.
Remember in 1980 when you first, was that the first year you played in the tournament?
Yeah, it was the first time I ever played Norman Holdem, in fact.
Remember you stormed through the field. I remember well because I was at the final table and you just cut through me like I wasn't.
But you got even with me 2 years later at the Tropicana when you flopped the biggest straight than me and you beat me for like 200-something thousand in the pot. I don't forget that.
You remember that biggest straight?
I will never forget it.
This guy probably doesn't know what he had for lunch, but he remembers that straight 15 years ago. How does it feel, Stewie, to be back on top, leading the World Series of Poker, going into the final day, bring back a lot of memories?
Oh, it's great, Gabe. It really is. You know, I haven't done well in this tournament since '81, and I really forgot how really great it is to be over there, be on TV, and everyone's shaking hand, asking how you're doing. You know what I'm saying?
Your life's been like a roller coaster ride. You had some highs, some lows, and you had some personal tragedy in your life. It must feel really good to get back in there and be competing, be in front. Final day, World Series of Poker. What's going to be your strategy tomorrow?
Well, I'm going to be a little more disciplined. I'm going to tell you my strategy right now is I'm going to try to have half the chips and get down the head up with someone else, with one other player, because I pretty much don't think anyone could be beat two-handed.
How much weight have you gained in the last 15 years?
I don't know how much I gained last year, but I lost about 6 pounds since this interview started with these lights. I have to eat 5 meals to make this up.
Stu the Kid Ungar, back-to-back championships, 1980, 81. Can he do it 16 years later?
What's it like watching that?
I told you he's so witty, and so like I miss that so much because he just was so hilarious. Like he would just come out with these things, and I would just die laughing, and so I miss that about him. Like just even hearing that he's like, I don't know how much I lost, or I won, but losing 6 pounds from these lights. And I don't know, I just get it because obviously I knew him, but in a way, like it's just, I'm glad you guys are getting to see this because it was just such a cool picture of like what his personality was like, you know.
And Gabe also is the perfect person to bring that out in him. You know, Gabe is like...
Oh yeah, they were friends. They were friends. I remember being little and going to California, and they would golf together, and I would go with him. You know, so yeah, so that was like a good friend conversation that you saw. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. And they were still joking about, and his memory also, you know, of remembering the one hand that he lost at the Tropicana 20 years earlier. You know, that would stick with him, and you know, his memory is just full of poker hands and stuff like that, which is just so crazy.
Yeah, he could recall back, you know, things that you would be like, what, how do you remember that exactly, how things went down, how it was played, all that. He very much, even at the end of his life, when you would think, you know, at the state he was, like, no, he was still sharp, you know. So yep.
When this event was happening, you were 15 years old, I think, or somewhere in that range. Were you aware of the World Series happening? Were you guys following the action? Were there friends and family keeping you up to date on how it was going?
No, he was calling. Well, so first of all, just backstory. I was living in Florida at the time with my mom. And so he was calling me in between each breaks. And he would say like, hey, honey, I'm down to this many people. I'm down to this many people. I'm doing da-da-da-da-da. Okay, I got to go. I'm going back in. But he kept calling me to like fill me in. The whole time. And so it wasn't anybody else calling. He was actually calling me. Must have been obviously from the horseshoe in between his breaks. So.
Wow. That's so cool, because that also to me shows how much he cared to share, you know, when things were going well with him, because this came during a time where it wasn't going so well. So this was maybe something that he was like really holding on to.
Yeah, it was something he definitely was holding on to. And I think he needed definitely at the time. And so yeah, I mean, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I know I got at least 3 calls this day, you know? So he was very proud. And I think, I almost wonder if he even needed the encouragement, you know, like he just needed, you know, the push to keep going because, you know, and at this time, nobody knows this. He actually was playing with 104 fever or 103 fever and an abscessed tooth. So like and in the Vegas heat. So they've never had another World Series, you know, final table held outside in the heat. But he had 103 temperature and an abscessed tooth, as well as, you know, all the things that you go through when you're trying to win the World Series, the mental strength that it takes, you know.
And so the idea of playing the WSB main event final table for millions of dollars outside in the Vegas heat was definitely a terrible idea. I mean, no matter how many blowers or, you know, whatever those sprinklers are called were around that table, that could not have been a comfortable scenario for anyone, let alone with a toothache and you know, all the stuff that your dad was going through.
Yeah. Nobody knows that. And so like the few people I've shared that with, they're like, are you kidding me? And I'm like, no, it's the truth. Like, so.
Yeah, no, that is really crazy. There's some questions coming in. People asking, you know, what are some of your favorite memories? And I know we talked about this a little bit also earlier in the show. What I'm also curious about is, in the 90s, you know, as you were sort of starting to build memories with him, was he even a poker player at that point? Because we don't see any results from him, or not many at least. Or was he just mostly, you know, trying to spend time with you and trying to, I don't know, sort of be away from the game, be away.
80s or during the 90s. That is kind of like when it got like bad with him, was I'd say the last like 4 years of his life. So he was, I'm not really sure, like, I know he was playing like a little bit of games, but I don't know to the extent going, you know. But I mean, he still had money. I mean, he would give me money to, like, when it would be time to like buy school clothes and things like that. And he was always the one I would go to. So like he was still, you know, he still had money somehow. So I can imagine he was doing something. He's never had a real job in his whole life except for playing poker. So he was making it somewhere. I don't know. But to the extent of like what we have known him to do in the tournaments and things like that, like, yeah, I mean, obviously he wasn't playing nearly like what he was known to do, you know? So, but I was spending time with him. Like I was with him all the time, especially when I moved back. So basically when he won this World Series of Poker, I was living in Florida. And so right when he won, we flew out here to come see him and to congratulate him and, you know, like all that. And he told my mom, he's like, I want Stefanie out here. He's like, please, he's like, I'll pay for your move, whatever you need. He's like, I just want her out here. And so literally we flew back to Florida. And I think within like 3 weeks, we flew back and like we're living here. So, which I'm so thankful for, because within 2 years, he passed away. So I got to have the last 2 years of his life, you know, like without even knowing that it was his last 2 years. And I got to spend a lot of time with him during that time. And it was really great. So yeah, that's how I got back out to Vegas.
So it's pretty clear that, you know, the 80s were sort of his heyday. That's where, you know, he was on top of his game. You can also tell that he looks young and healthy and fresh. And then when you see him now, I think as a spectator, you almost sort of feel sorry for him. But then it's so great to hear from your perspective that, you know, he shared all that love with you, even though he couldn't really find a way to, I guess, love himself or care for himself. And you were sort of, from reading and watching the movies and documentaries, you were sort of like his anchor point in that dark time of his life.
Yeah. He obviously was going through a lot, you know. I mean, you can physically tell. I mean, you see all of a sudden he's now wearing sunglasses and he never wore those before. And, you know, he thought in his mind it was hiding his nose, which, had collapsed. And, but I don't think it was fooling anybody, but I think it was the best he could do, And so like, we knew that he was definitely struggling, but again, like I didn't see it. Like when it was time for me to like go to dinner with him or go spend time with him, like I didn't really see that, So we just had a lot of, I have a lot of amazing memories from the last World Series of Poker up until the time he passed away. Like I have like one of my, my most precious memories were from those 2 years. So, yeah. So
how would you like for the poker world to remember him? Because we always sort of fawn over his accomplishments and his genius, but clearly, as you've displayed during this entire conversation, there was so much more to him as a person. So do you think we need to adjust how we remember him, or do you feel as though the poker world is largely doing right by him in keeping his memory alive?
I mean, I think it's amazing that, for someone to be gone, 22 years and they're still talked about. I mean, even how I came across you was through your list of like, who you think is the top players of all time. And to see like, he's still regarded and he has not played for like 20 something years. And I appreciate that. It just goes to show like how talented and amazing he was. But I guess I don't blame certain people for thinking certain things about him, because they only know what they know. And, they don't know the other side to him that like his closest people in his circle did know, which those same people also saw him in bad situations as well, vulnerable and sad situations as well. But as far as like the man that he was and the heart that he had and how giving he was and all of that, like, I guess the poker world wouldn't necessarily know. So I can't hold it against them in a way, but I'm hoping to bring a more well-rounded view of him. So it's a little more accurate and balanced in a sense too, so yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it does. And for some extra context, you are working on a documentary series about your dad's life. There's a lot of people asking questions about, that, and they've seen glimpses of it on your Instagram pages, and people are asking, who did you get to speak to? Who's going to be part of the documentary? People are asking if you had a chance to include Mike Sexton in the documentary, who sadly passed away last year. So can you give some insight on who was involved in the documentary series? Did you get a chance to talk to Mike last year before his passing? And what's the timeline for the public to perhaps watch this?
So as far as Mike Sexton goes, this wasn't planned yet before he passed away. I mean, obviously we know how much content is out there with Mike sharing stories about my dad, and he, in my opinion, he's always been like the most accurate storyteller of any story that I've ever had. I've always really appreciated that, how he just, it was just, I would read it and resonate with all his stories and be like, that was so my dad. Like he says it so perfectly, the way he used words. But anyway, no, unfortunately this project was not, even started yet before he passed away, which, I mean, it's so unfortunate, but we're playing around with ideas. I don't know how it would work if we can use some of those old like interviews and things that he said and incorporate it. I don't know. I'm talking with the producers and seeing how that would work, because that's definitely, it's like a hole I feel like that we have, because they were so close. And Mike was so loyal to my dad, and my dad was very loyal to him. They were amazing friends. And but yeah, so I have Mike, or I don't have Mike. That's what I had to say about Mike. But the other people that are involved, we have talked to Daniel Negreanu so far. We've talked with Billy Baxter, Phil Hellmuth. We've talked with Jack Binion, obviously. My mom is in it. I'll be in it. so this is just the very, very early stages. I plan to have, you know, Bobby Baldwin. I actually love this part. I've watched it so many times. I have Billy Baldwin, Bobby Baldwin. I'm getting like distracted. Bobby Baldwin. And then, you know, so this is just the very beginning. So we're just making, in a sense, you know, our trailer in a sense right now. And then from there, we're going to go shop it and see who's going to, you know, ultimately it has to get picked up. So that's what we could be all hoping and praying for, that it gets picked up and that it becomes this amazing series, because I've been asked so many times, like, when is there going to be a movie, or when is there going to be a series or a documentary? And it's like, I want to do that. Like, I want to do that. And I want to do it for the poker community. And I want to do it, you know, just to honor his legacy. And so I really hope that happens. So there's other guys that I would love to be involved as this progresses, but that's where we're at right now. It's only been about 3 weeks that I've been really doing this. Like, we just kind of got started. So we'll see.
Well, you know, PokerGO, if you're watching. Oh, I happen to work for PokerGO. We should definitely have a conversation about that, and I'll connect you with the right people. And I'm sure Maury Eskandani also has a lot of stories from the past, and he's of course the president at PokerGO. So I hope that one way or another this can be created and added to the library of stories that there are out there about your dad. Meanwhile, I paused it and I skipped back because I don't want to miss this little interview here with Gabe and Helmuth.
Stewie, come over here a minute. Stewie.
Oh, this is a cool hand that happened.
Why'd you call John Shrimp with that aces?
I knew he didn't have an ace. You know, I didn't know I just knew he didn't have ace every time he flopped stop pair. I don't want to say it, he's probably be listening. Well, he moves in all his chips every time he flops stop pair. He don't even give you a chance to bet at it. I mean, every time he makes top pair, he just moves all his money in. You know, I knew he didn't have an ace. If he backdoored spades, I can't help it. I almost raised him at the end, figuring he might have made some 2 golf and go 2 pair with 3 spades up there, and look at it, ran into it.
My point is that he's not going to bluff 70,000 at the end.
This guy's got a better king, thinking it's the best hand. You know, I don't know what the guy's capable.
What do you know about
the
poker?
The president of a hotel. He's the end of the stick. You know.
Yeah, take a walk. Go back to New York.
Listen to Phil. He sits right there with me. He knows what he's talking about.
It's worth going back and taking a look at that hand based on what Stu Ungar said, because
he goes, that guy's a president of a hotel. He doesn't know he might not know what he's doing.
Oh,
that was funny.
Fantastic. Here's a little replay of the hand.
He was confused by John Stremp's action. John Stremp raised on 4th Street, 45,000, with a pair of kings and a flush draw. And this confused Stewie because he didn't think John Stremp was capable of doing that. It's almost like the Cincinnati Kid, where the man raised on the come, trying to make a flush, and it confused Steve McQueen. Stewie Ungar, who's our kid, who's our Brooklyn kid actually, was confused by John Stremp's action, and it almost caused him to make a big mistake. So when the flush comes on the end and John Stremp bets a little 70,000, like he's got not too big a hand, Stewie was confused and almost raised. But being a great player, not a good player, he contemplated the pros and cons and decided the right course of action was just a call.
Even in losing, Stewie manages a small victory.
All right, that was really a funny moment from that 1997 main event final table.
Yeah.
Have you watched this final table a lot? Is this like, something you're very familiar with?
Oh yeah, I have this tape and everything. Like, it's still on VHS. But I have watched it so many times throughout the years because, it just, when someone passes away, and to see them like, right there, like as if, in real life again, it's just, I think at times when I've missed him, I will turn on certain things like this or Google and read stories written about for because I don't have a lot of things and a lot of like home videos and things like that, and so this has been what I've turned to at times. And so yeah, I almost have this like final table memorized in a sense, as you see. but yeah.
That's really cool. There were questions coming in earlier. People asking when they saw the jacket, like which other things do you have that remind you of your dad, or things that he's given to you that you still cherish?
Gosh, what's hard is the last few years of his life. His house, it like got taken. I don't know exactly the scenario around it, and so everything that was in it just got, I don't know, confiscated or what. I don't know. He just obviously was not well, and so everything went with it. And I did hear like it was in storage, and I don't know who had control and what was what, but some of the things. But honestly, all my memories are like, I don't have a lot. Like everything that I have is like really in my heart. and that's what I hold on to. And so it's kind of sad. So I don't have a ton of things. I have like shoes and things like that. I hold on to like all the articles throughout the years, and, you know, memorabilia that people have given to me. But yeah, it's a little hard that I don't have like the typical things. When someone passes away, you can hold on to their stuff. I remember the night he died, actually, and I found out he passed away. My reaction was like, I want to go get his stuff, and where he was staying at the time. And I just got whatever was left in, you know, where he was at. And that's really all that I had, you know, that was left over. And he had that picture of me still that he had in his pocket in this game there as well. So it was like he held on to that, which was so special and sweet to see. But yeah, unfortunately, I wish it was a different story and a different scenario, but that's really my life and what happened at the end. And it's part of the sad story of how things turned out, which is why I think I say I want to help anybody that may go down a similar road or have, you know, that addictive personality or whatever it is, or certain things to watch out for or to think about, because I know he wouldn't want to see someone go down a similar path that he ended up going down, you know. So
that's really hard to hear, because I know how much this all means to you, and I just feel lucky that I can go through this footage with you, and knowing how much this means to you also. And I had no idea about the house and basically all the stuff being taken. That's obviously terrible. Are there? I know Vegas has changed so much over the last 5 years, but let alone in the last 25 years. Are there specific places in the city that you have positive memories with him for? Like, did you guys go?
So many.
Like, I don't know. I mean, in that case, I don't have to, you know, flush out the question even more. But like, what are those places that you have those good memories of?
Oh my gosh, we would go to dinner all the time. And it's funny to see like my dad, how he can't sit still, and everybody like says his leg would constantly shake, and he would like almost like ADD, which I think he was, which I personally have a theory on ADD. I feel like it's a gift, even though it has like its negative connotation. But I think their brains move so fast. That's why they're so smart. But anyways, yeah, I have like so many memories of us going out to eat and sitting there and talking for hours. And he would teach me so much about psychology and people and life and like character, honestly, like so much of how I live my life. I don't know if we want to call them codes that I live by or whatever, has come from him teaching me about like being true to my word, and just things like that. I just sitting across from him and those dinners, I think to me have always been my favorite, because it was just so much quality time that we had. So I have, the Mirage. I have a lot of amazing memories from the Mirage. Like that was his place that he would play at, and I would go to the salon at the Mirage and go get my hair done or go see the dolphins or whatever it would be. And then, I'd meet up with him there, and he would take a break, and we'd go eat at, we'd always go to the California Pizza Kitchen and go to the Chinese place. He loved Chinese food. So I have memories like that. We would, like I said, go shopping, and he would take me and I'd be like, Dad, how's this outfit look? Do you like this shirt better or this shirt better? And he loved it. Like I think that was one of his favorite things that he liked to do, was to go shopping with me. And like, cause we just would laugh and have the best time. And it's funny because I'm sure people wouldn't picture him like that, but he was so like that. Like he just loved spending time with me, and we would have a blast.
These stories you're telling us are really helping reshape a lot of what we know about your dad, because all the memories that we have are tied to these broadcasts, and they're tied to his results that we know, and stories from Mike Sexton and Doyle Brunson about what he was like as a gambler and as a player. So, you know, thank you again for sharing all these personal stories and anecdotes, because it makes the story so much deeper, and it adds so much to it, which is just amazing. Right now, by the way, for people who are just tuning in, I still see new people chiming in. We're deep into the 1997 main event final table. This is all available on PokerGO. So if you missed any of it, you can watch all this on PokerGO. Go to the WSB Classics folder on the website, and then you can watch it all as it unfolds, basically. If anyone has any questions, please send them into the chat. We are live on Twitch, on Facebook, and on YouTube, and we have about 15 minutes left in the show. Stefanie, we've been focused so much on your dad, but I also want to know more about your story. You were living in Florida. You came back to Vegas. Obviously, right now you are also living in Vegas. How did your life evolve?
That's Donna Baldwin. She's so pretty. That was Bobby Baldwin's wife.
Oh,
anyways,
you got a sharp eye. You got a really sharp eye.
She was so beautiful, like Miss Nevada or something is what she was. Anyway, she's a sweet girl. Hi, Donna, if you're watching.
that'd be awesome if she was. But yeah, so my question is, what happened in your life in the years after that you stay in Vegas, and what did you ultimately end up choosing as a career?
The years after my father passed away.
Yeah, did you stay in Vegas, or did you go back to Florida?
Yes. So I stayed in Vegas because I was 16 at the time when he passed away. So I stayed in Vegas. I graduated high school. I ultimately did move back to Florida for a couple of years, and then just found myself back here. I just wanted to be back in Vegas. And so from there, I was 21, trying to find myself, and ultimately got into, I've always been in sales my entire life. And so that was what I was doing. When I was telling you I was competitive and shoot for the top, I was always the top sales girl at every company I would work at. And I was third in the nation in a Fortune 500 company and in sales and things like that, which is funny because it has to do with psychology, which is similar to my dad and all that. But so I found myself in that. And then, but now what I'm doing is I'm obviously producing. And so I've been producing a couple TV shows and things like that. And then I'm really focusing right now on this docu-series, and we'll see where it goes. I would love to see a movie made on my dad's life as well. And I'm, an accurate movie. And so I'm working, talking with somebody about that right now in Hollywood. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm just trying to, I guess right now, this phase in my life has been more about my father. And I think that this is the time. I don't know if it was time before. There's always a season and a time for everything. And it feels like this is the right time. So that's where I'm at right now. But yes, I got married. I forgot to say that. Got married. I've been married 10 years. I have 2 kids. So yeah, I mean, that's just been where I've been since right around this moment.
Right. So what was it that drew you back to Vegas? Because Vegas is such an odd place, especially if you think about like the late 90s and early 2000s, it was very different than what it is.
When I was in Florida, I actually had a breakup with a boyfriend. So I was like, I'm just going to go back home and I'm just going to go work, I need to, go back to my family, my mom. And so that's just what I wanted to do. And I remember when I first came back, I got a job at cocktailing at Treasure Island. It was a cool place then, and actually I have a cool story about when I started cocktailing there about my dad. There was a cocktail waitress that used to be like a cocktail waitress over at the Mirage, and she was just in the poker room. They have their sections that they have. And so she came up to me when she heard Stu Ungar's daughter was now working at Treasure Island as a cocktail waitress, and she found me. She's like, I've been looking all over the casino for you, the casino floor. And she's like, I have to tell you a story. And I was like, what is it? And she goes, your dad, I will never forget. She goes, I was working in the Mirage, poker room, and it was Christmas time, and I was a single mom, and your dad knew that I was a single mom, and said, listen, he goes, here's $500, buy your kids some presents for Christmas. And she's like, I don't care what anybody ever says about your dad. She goes, I have seen him and have known him to be the most generous person and so caring. And I just needed you to know that your dad did this. And I was like, I don't think you understand how much I appreciate that. Thank you so much for going out of your way to find me, to tell me this. Cause it was just, it's so my dad, it was so my dad to do something like that. And so anyways, but yeah, that was right when I first moved back to Vegas to be with my mom. And yeah. So I only worked there 9 months. I couldn't handle walking in heels all day long and serving drinks. It was too hard. And I really give mad respect to those girls, because that's hard.
That's a great story. And those movie about your dad was terrible, and that everybody wants to see it be remade, especially hearing all your stories on the show today. So hopefully, Hollywood, if you're watching, we can make that happen. That would be amazing. By the way, in the chat, let me know who you think should play Stu Ungar in the next movie. I'm sure, Stefanie, you have some strong feelings about that.
I don't know either. I'm kind of stuck. So if you guys have ideas, like totally throw them out there, because I have no idea. I want to say hi. I'm getting all these like amazing comments on my page of just people saying like hi, and they love this, and like they're like, I feel like the poker community is like a family, and I feel like you guys are all like my brothers and sisters. It's weird. I can't explain the feeling, but I get so much encouragement like on the daily basis from people writing, and so everyone's like totally writing me right now saying you're doing so well. Honestly, I was so nervous to come on your show, and so I'm just, I don't know, I'm just thankful, and I just wanted to say hi to everybody.
No, that's I was the one who was being nervous. Come on, let's get this straight here.
You were nervous.
I was nervous.
Listen, I agreed to be on your show when you asked me, and then I come to find out there's like 200,000 people watch your like podcast sometimes. Like I was looking at your YouTube, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of people. Like, but I guess it's good, because I'm wanting to like honor his legacy and do this. So I'm like, I think that's a good thing. But I was like, wow, that's a lot of people. You're doing a great job, by the way, for you to do what you do. Like, you're amazing. So like, good for you that you do this.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And it all comes from a place of passion. I'm passionate about poker. I'm passionate about stories, and this story is one of the ones that I've been most interested in for a very long time. And I'm very sure that this is not the last time that you and I are going to do either a podcast or a video together, because I feel as though there are many more stories to be told. Perhaps in a different format or whatever. But I can just tell from the reactions today that everybody is loving the content. And this will live on internet forever. So whenever you catch this, do drop a comment down below. Follow Stefanie on Instagram. It's right there on the screen for you guys, and she'll keep you updated on the documentary series that she is working on. We haven't really listened much to the broadcast from this 97 main event final table, so let's just listen in and get a bit of a feel of what this was like.
And we have a pot between Mel Judah and Stu Ungar.
$146,000 pot.
Here's the flop. 10 jack, 3 2 hearts.
Diamonds.
That piece of glass, incidentally, comes from my mother's condominium in Florida. She was kind enough to let us use it. Check on the flop. Here's 4th Street, deuce of clubs. Let's see what happens here. Stu's not going to let this go any further. Here he goes. He's betting $80,000.
Stu bets $80,000. Mel moves all in.
Mel Judah doesn't take a lot of time. He calls and raises, goes all in.
Looks like about 230,
Happened so fast.
240,000.
Count up.
Doesn't know what happened. He says, count it, and he stares at Mel Judah trying to get some kind of read. What do you have, Mel? Do you have a drawing hand? He could have a queen king and just raised, hoping to buy the pot right here. That's what Stewie's trying to figure out. But Mel Judah is sitting there like Mel Buddha, not trying to give any. And now Mel Judah goes all in, and Stewie says, looks to me like Stewie's got a jack with maybe a mediocre kicker like a jack-8. He's trying to figure out if the hand is good. He usually makes the right decisions in these circumstances. Let's see if he makes the right one here. He calls.
Turn them up, guys.
Turns over jack with a good kicker, jack-queen. Mel Judah has a 9-10. Mel Judah is in very bad shape in this pot. He needs a 9 or a 10 to win. Otherwise, he's going to be our third-place finisher.
One card to count.
Mel Judah knows he's not in good shape. Here's the last card.
The card's a king. Stu Ungar wins the hand.
King.
Mel Judah becomes on
Mel
third
Judah's
place.
out of the tournament.
And that brings us down to heads-up play here in the 1997 main event, Stu Ungar versus John Stremps. Of course, iconic footage. If you are into poker and you've never seen this full stream or full final table, go check it out on PokerGO. It's definitely worth a watch. Great commentary by Gabe Kaplan and Phil Hemmings is in the booth. I believe Linda Johnson stops by. There's a whole bunch of people involved in this broadcast. But yeah, now we're down to heads up play. And as Stu said himself in the interview with Gabe, once it's, I think he called it two-handed. Once it's two-handed poker, no one can beat me.
Yeah. I talked to Phil, and he said when it got down to the final table, it was just basically who was playing for second place. Like everybody knew. So this is just, it's crazy.
Yeah, that was definitely his specialty, and I think it comes from his background in gin, which also is a heads-up game, and then. You know, this is like a little bit of a side tangent here. But last night we had high stakes duel on PokerGO. We had Helmuth versus Negreanu. They played a 200K match on PokerGO. And then when you hear Stu say something, as you know, that it resonates even to this day. You know, that heads up poker was his specialty, and right now we're doing 200K heads up matches, and how much of a factor he would have been in that format specifically, and how he would have been thriving under the bright lights. Just makes me wonder even more about all these hypotheticals, all these ifs and buts.
Yeah, I wonder if he would have got invited to play heads up matches, like he would have got shut out again, like he did with Jin. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I'm partial. I'm his daughter, so
Absolutely. All right, let's listen into this heads-up match here between Stu and John.
With $1 million grub stake.
For those of you who said, I'll never see $1 million in my lifetime, well, you're seeing it. You're looking at it. $1 million right on the table.
This is it. Heads-up poker for hard cash between Stu the Kid Ungar and John, treasurer of the Sierra Madre Stremp.
So he's going to raise 40.
John Stremp, by the way, longest nickname in the history of nicknames. Did you hear that? The Sierra Madre Star something?
Oh, is that what that means? Oh, okay. I guess I never caught that.
Let's listen to that one more time, because I thought that was pretty funny.
Okay.
Between Stu the Kid Ungar and John, treasurer of the Sierra Madre Stremp.
So he's going to raise 40,000.
So you can pick. You can be the kid or have this 19-syllable nickname, which is really funny.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny.
40,000 raise. Got $124,000 in the center right now. Here's a flop. Ace 3-5, different suits. John's first act, and here he goes again.
Right away.
Betting out. 120,000. Now at this point, Stewie's well aware that the last time John bet out, he had a pair of aces in the pocket. And that's one of the things that's going through Stewie's mind. A feeling exactly, does John have something? Does he have a marginal hand like he's bet with so many times before, or does he have a real good hand like the last time he bet out on the flop?
So he keeps looking back at that one card as if he's got maybe got an ace, but doesn't like what the other is kicker.
Every so often, Stewie will glance up Try and catch.
He's going to call.
I raise it.
Raises.
This could be it, ladies and gentlemen. He's rating $800,000.
He does have the
John
ace.
calls. Here we go. This could be it.
Ace 4. Ace with no kicker.
He needs a deuce or a 4. Stewie needs a deuce or a 4.
Stu's in a little bit of trouble here. A tray won't do it. Yes.
Deuce. Stewie wins the tournament. Stu Ungar has won 3 World Series of Poker.
Incredible.
Well, it was a complete reversal of fortune. Stu Ungar had played great, intimidated everybody all day, but to win his 3rd title, he had to get lucky. At the end, John Schremp, who played well all day, but got real lucky to win a few hands. Now, in the hand that counted the most, he got real unlucky. Looking at a picture of a very happy 14-year-old girl. This is Stu Ungar's daughter, Stefanie, and I know that you played very hard today, and one of the reasons was for this little girl. I haven't seen her for about 7, 8 years, but she's a very beautiful young lady.
Well, I appreciate it, Gabe. Thank you. I called up last night, and she says to me, Daddy, I'm going to disown you if I don't win the tournament. And I said, Stefanie, I love you too much for you to disown me. I said, I'm going to win the tournament, and it's where you'll go on loving me. And I guaranteed a victory, and I proved myself worthy of it.
He had a couple drinks right there.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, because he didn't drink, and I know they were celebrating right afterwards with champagne, and I was like, I'm sitting there watching him. I'm like, oh gosh, he's so tipsy right there because he didn't drink, So he's like, because right afterwards they were celebrating. But anyways, I wonder if I got it wrong, if it was the day before he was calling me. Maybe he wasn't calling me the day of the final table, but it was the day. Yeah, it might have been the day before then. But it was like keeping me up to date for sure.
Yeah.
Stu, let me ask you a personal question. I think I know you well enough to ask you this question. In 1980 and 1981, you won the championship, but you weren't smart after that. Your life didn't go 100% in the right course. Now you're older, you're wiser, you're 43 years old. You think you're going to do things differently now?
Well, I hope so, Gabe. I've neglected. When I get to playing like I was on stroke this tournament, I really believe that no one can play with me on a daily basis.
Stu the Kid Ungar is back, and look out next year. Congratulations.
Thank you, Gabe. I appreciate everything. I want my daughter's picture one more time. I love you, honey, and I'll be seeing you soon.
Can I get that $300 you borrowed from me about 6 years ago?
Little joke there at the end from Gabe Kaplan. You've obviously seen this countless times. What does it do to you to see him respond to the question of will you do better now with? He doesn't respond to that with I'll try or whatever. He says I hope so, which sounds a little sort of defeatist to me, as if he had sort of resigned in his fate of not being able to overcome his demons.
Sure. See, the way I see it is because he was so honest. Like when I mentioned that earlier, he just was like, he really told it like it is. And I think he just didn't know. So the normal person would be on cloud 9 and be like, oh yeah, I'm totally going to straighten up. Yeah, I'm going to do this. But to me, I take it as like, he was just being honest. Like, I hope so. Like, I really do, And so I think that he knew how hard and how much of a struggle it was. And he knew what they were referring to, obviously, was to be clean. And I think anyone that's battled with any sort of anything in life, you understand the strength that it could be to overcome that. And I think he knew that. It didn't mean that he didn't try multiple times. He actually did more times. It wasn't like he gave his life over to it and said, I'm not going to fight. Trust me, he fought that thing. But it was a battle, So anyways, I take that as he was trying to just be honest and say, I hope so. I really do hope I do. I really hope I can, and it's misquoted sometimes. Even what he said, a lot of times people will quote that saying that he just said, and no one ever beat me except for myself. But what he actually said was, nobody ever beat me except for myself and my bad habits. He basically said, it's my bad habits that's basically beating me, And so I just, and that's why I say I want to help people, because for him to be so honest right there, he's more honest than I would have been. I mean, that was very transparent. And so I just feel like I just want to think that's what he would want.
Right.
So so anyways.
Well, it's good that you provide that context immediately, because it's so easy to read into the way someone says something, but you of course knew him better than anyone. And as everyone who's watching right now, we all just wish that things would have turned out differently. But the only thing we can say is that we're just happy that we have, these stories and these memories that we can all share and sort of remember him by. And I just want to thank you for being on the show and telling your story. I hope we can get to hear a lot more stories through your
I'd love to.
Through your documentary series, or otherwise.
Yes.
No, both. We got to do as much as possible, because we got to save these stories for posterity, for posterity's sake. For the people in the chat, please leave a comment down below, or any reference in the chat, or any questions that you might still have. Steffi and I can always find a way to do another show in the future if there's a lot of things you guys still want to hear more about. And then follow her on Instagram. It's at Stefanie Ungar. That is where she'll keep you guys updated on all the latest on the documentary series. She also tells lots of stories there, so go check that out. The handle is on the screen. It is now correct. We fixed it. It's correct. Whew, dodge one there, but I'm glad that we got that fixed. Stephanie, anything that people have to look forward to? Do you have any more stories you're going to share on Instagram, or any more things in the works that the audience should know about?
I feel like I spilled the beans on this one. I really did. I hope I still have some stories left from the documentary. No, I'm just kidding. I do. So no, I will keep you guys updated if there's anything else through my Instagram. And as far as right now, this is a lot of work. It's a lot of work to do this, but I love it. I feel like it's my life passion project right now. And so I will just keep you guys updated as far as when this is moving along and how things are going. And as soon as I know more information, I pretty much share that with you guys right away. So I will continue to do so.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. My name is Remko Rinkema. You can follow me on Twitter at Remko Rinkema. That is the handle. I'll be back next week with another show. We're going to have Spraggy on the show. We're going to probably make fun of Lex Veldhuis or do something along those lines. It's going to be a bit of a different flavor, but as always on Running Back, a laid back conversation, just fun to hang out with everyone. Stefanie, thanks again. And
thank you.
Thank you for making time for us.
Oh, thank you so much.